Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Today's story is about the power of well-placed authority and a little bit of creative payback. Imagine you're waiting patiently in line at the ATM when Tokyo Drift Karen swoops in out of nowhere, cutting ahead like she's the main character of this financial transaction. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. I didn't have any of it. I told her I need to fix this one because I was finished with the ATM next door. This didn't happen to me directly or personally, but I was the one able to dish out the revenge. I work for a company that builds and loans out ATM machines to banks. I go around doing general maintenance and service to ATMs within my entire state. I won't lie, it kind of gives me a rush knowing I have the power to open and close ATM lines, but I make sure to only use it when I need it. This was a moment I used my powers for a little revenge. What had happened was, I was at an ATM building where it was just 2 ATM lines in this location and the actual bank a few blocks down. I'd already showed up for the ATM on the outer line. Then someone got money jammed and I had to reset it a few times because it was being dumb. As I was waiting for a reset to finish, I noticed a line was forming in the ATM next to mine and looked back to the farthest person. A lady was hanging back in her minivan because she wasn't sure which ATM would open first, mine, the one still in service, or the other one where a guy was taking a bit too long and another car was still behind him. She kept a single car's length between her and the other ATM just for this reason. Cue rushing lady. This lady swerved in and got between this lady, and I mean in Tokyo Drift fashion. It was damn near impressive how she didn't hit any cars in her small, dark gray Honda. She was also much older than the lady in the minivan. She was wearing sunglasses on a very cloudy day, like a day you knew it was going to rain that night. Anyway, the minivan lady started honking at her, being so impolite, because this lady took a spot in line. Something about this lady didn't sit right with me. It mainly her face, which reminded me of an entitled Karen that I got onto an accident with a few years ago when I lived in a different state. So since I'm working on the ATM next door, I decided to get a little justice for this. Normally, my truck is enough to deter people from using my lane for the ATM, but I can traffic cones to help deter if people weren't getting the idea. I walked to the back of my truck enough to where the old lady couldn't see my face. I gave the minivan lady a finger to the lips gesture as I pulled out both traffic cones and set them right in front of the old lady's car before she even got close enough to the ATM to use it. She got all fussy and tried to bargain with me. I didn't have any of it. I told her I need to fix this one because I was finished with the ATM next door. She gave up and backed out to leave. Once the coast was clear, I put the cones back into my van and nodded at the minivan lady. The minivan lady thanked me and told me to say hi if I ever stopped by her Target. I can't because I was in a different county to her and it was about an hour away from home normally. You're so sweet. Sticking up for the minivan lady was so nice, and it's a story she'll tell for a long while. Good for you. The best petty revenge is when only you and maybe one other person is in on it. Plausible deniability, am I right? And our second story. How I accidentally fixed workplace tension with a PA mic drop. My story occurred many years ago when I worked at a regional supply warehouse for a company who specialized in a certain kind of widget. I worked in the office taking calls from customers and working with the warehouse staff to get orders picked and shipped. Office staff communicated with the warehouse over the PA system. Only those of us in the office and supervisors had access to the PA system. Protocol was that we would state the person's name we were communicating with first and then state whatever we had to say. We were to repeat it at least once. Being easily bored, I never repeated things exactly the same while injecting subtle humor where I could. All of it professional and above reproach, of course. There was a quality control department of 2 people who monitored the warehouse staff and helped when things went awry. These people knew the warehouse from end to end and were often called to find widgets that went missing. There was some friction between the office staff and quality control because of petty reasons that I realized were stupid after being on the job for a couple of weeks. That friction sometimes bled over into the warehouse staff. On this day, the warehouse staff could not find a particular widget for an important customer, so they called in Dory from quality control to find it while they moved on to other orders. Dory searched the warehouse from end to end but could not find it either. She was out of breath when she came scurrying up to my cubicle for help. She said, "OP, could you tell Mark that I have no clue where it is?" I asked, "You want me to tell Mark you have no clue?" She replied, "Yes, please," with some urgency. I nodded, thanked the goddess for this opportunity, picked up the phone, pushed the PA button. Dory anxiously watched my every move because this widget was important. Slowly and clearly, I said, "Mark, Dory has no clue where the widget is located. Mark, Dory is clueless." The entire place erupted in laughter. All the managers came out of their offices laughing, and the warehouse and loading docks came to a standstill. This lasted for a good 5 minutes at least. The act of this huge group belly laugh was like a valve for all the pressure that had been building up over trying to keep up during our busy season. It totally changed the mood of the entire place for the better for a while. Fortunately, Dory was good-natured and didn't take offense. She laughed too, because I'd done exactly as she asked. Consequently, relations between office staff and quality control began to thaw, along with our relationship with the warehouse staff. When I occasionally ventured out into the warehouse, people were much nicer and more cooperative. It became a nicer place to work, and all because of malicious compliance. And yes, they did find the widget. "Why did you bring me a widget? I specifically asked for a gizmo. You're a horrible employee. I need to speak with your manager." Dory's a gem. Good job with some great malicious compliance. And our next story. You want to park across my driveway? Okay. I live on the main road of a tiny town which is on a popular caravan route. There's a cafe 2 doors down. I frequently get vans parked partially blocking my driveway. Annoying, but if I can get out, no problem. Today, though, today the boomers didn't even pretend to try to leave space. The giant four-wheeler and massive caravan was parked squarely across the driveway. The hitch was literally in the middle of the driveway. All they had to do was park about 10 meters further up the road and there wouldn't have been any issues. I had just mowed the front lawn. I don't normally worry about the nature strip. It's dry, mostly dirt and gravel, and the council looks after it anyway. But today I made sure I have the best tended nature strip in town. Gravel flying everywhere. Some may have hit the car or van, who can tell? There was definitely a thin film of dust over them at least. When the missus returned to the car, I did politely point out that they'd blocked my driveway. She had the grace to look embarrassed. Mister didn't even have the courage to say anything to me. I didn't stop until they left. F them. I would have had it towed, and then when they showed up asking where it was, explained that it had to be towed as my partner had to get to work and we had no idea where they were. I'd say this even if I was single. And our last story. My neighbor thought he could use my property until I served him a cease and desist. Last summer, my family went through 2 major life changes. We moved into a new house and less than 2 weeks later had a baby. Needless to say, we were pretty preoccupied with parenting and didn't have time to focus on much else. Unfortunately, that meant we failed to notice how often our neighbor was using our property for his own convenience without permission or even a discussion. It started innocently enough. His kids spent their days playing in our driveway, which in theory wouldn't have been a problem, but these kids had zero supervision or regard for cars, and I was genuinely afraid I was going to hit one of them while backing out of the garage. We politely asked them to stop. That's when they got creative. Instead of playing in the driveway, they started using our garage door as a bumper stop for their scooters and bikes. Every day, we heard loud thuds and crashes as their wheels slammed into the metal. They dented the garage door multiple times. I had to ask them over and over again to stop before they finally gave up and moved on. Then came the autumn, and with it a whole new level of entitlement. It wasn't until the leaves started falling that we noticed something else. The dad had been parking his trailer on our property. Now our property line is very clearly defined with fences and distinct landscaping. There's absolutely no way he didn't know he was encroaching. But not only was he parking his trailer on our land, he was also dragging his garbage cans through our yard, leaving deep, muddy tracks all over our grass. At this point, we decided to put an end to it. We left a polite note explaining the property line and even included our contact information. To make things even clearer, we lined the area with large rocks to physically define the boundary. We never heard back from them. But in early November, the dad finally rang our doorbell. He wasn't there to apologize. He wasn't there to ask for permission. Instead, he informed us that since he'd been parking his trailer like that since he moved in, we had no right to care now. He never asked if he could park on our land. He never acknowledged that it was our property. Instead, he simply stated, "It's never been a problem before, so I should be able to keep doing it." It didn't matter that we were new owners or that we had explicitly asked him to stop. He believed that his long-term freeloading gave him permanent rights. We tried to politely explain that we were planning on landscaping the area and his trailer and garbage cans were actively ruining our plans, but the entire conversation was a disaster. He spoke over me the entire time, treated me like a child, and made it clear he had no intention of respecting our wishes. At the end of the conversation, he huffed, rolled his eyes, and stormed off, but not before calling us rude neighbors. If that wasn't bad enough, he retaliated. He started parking even further over onto our property. He constantly moved the landscaping rocks we placed along the boundary. He dragged his garbage cans through our yard aggressively, leaving even worse marks, almost like he was zigzagging on purpose. At that point, we were done being polite. I decided to start documenting everything. Every time I saw his trailer parked illegally, every time he moved the rocks, every time he ran his garbage cans through our grass, I took photos as proof. This past weekend, while I was outside taking photos, he finally noticed. He came outside, glared at me, and in the most condescending voice possible asked, "What are you doing?" I kept my cool and said, "Just taking some photos." "Why?" he scoffed. "Because it's my property and we've asked you repeatedly not to use it." His response, a lazy shrug and a dismissive, "Whatever." That was it. I immediately contacted a lawyer and had a cease and desist letter drafted. It outlined everything: the parking, the trespassing, the damage he'd caused to our lawn. It made it very clear that if he continued to use our property, we would take legal action. A week later, he received the official letter. He didn't take it well. After getting the cease and desist, he sulked, he stopped talking to us, stopped making eye contact, but while the trailer was gone, he was still messing with our property line, so we took it one step further. We installed a fence. A tall, solid, unmistakable fence that made it physically impossible for him to park there or drag his garbage cans through our lawn. When he saw the installation happening, he came outside, pacing angrily. I could tell he wanted to say something, but what could he do? We had every legal right to build on our own property, and after months of him ignoring our requests, he had no argument left. That fence was the final nail in the coffin. This guy lowers what little faith I have left in humanity. He's so incredibly entitled that it's hard to believe. You've done everything you can to get him to respect the laws regarding property ownership, and he continues to not only trespass, but is causing damage. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.